All right, everyone, welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. Tonight we have a very special guest, a researcher out of Kentucky, Mr. Barry Preston Robertson. Uh, Barry has a show that he does on YouTube. I think it's every Tuesday night, praying and squatching. So, anybody watching tonight, please check Barry out and give him a big hand tonight. Blake, buddy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you, Ricky?
I'm doing good, man. Doing great. Anything
Enjoy,
better?
enjoying this nice weather we had today.
Oh yeah, me too. Most definitely, we had some fine weather.
It's getting that time of year.
That's it.
But as always, guys, I hope everyone's doing well. If you're from here in the South, I'm sure everyone's glad to see this weather we're having right now. Um, but we do have a lot of rain coming, so that's kind of a downside. But as always, guys, if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Leave us a comment, like. Um, that's all, Ricky.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Berry is going to be telling about his research in Kentucky about everybody's got to bear with me tonight. I've got some construction going on here at the house, so everybody just kind of bear with me. Uh, we're going to bring Mr. Berry on. Before we do, I'd like to give a shout out to a good friend of mine that I used to work with up at Constantine years ago, Mrs. Leslie Lester. Leslie has joined us tonight. Leslie from the group here at Northwest Georgia Cryptics, a big howdy, and I'm really glad to talk to you tonight. Okay, everybody, without further ado, I'm going to bring Mr. Berry on. Hello, Berry. How's it going, buddy?
Howdy, all right. You doing okay?
Oh, we're doing great. Barry, do you want to go ahead and
Can you
tell
hear
the
me?
yeah,
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 I
we're
can.
ready, buddy.
Can you hear us?
All right. Well, like I've told other people in other shows, yeah, I think we got a little bit of delay, but I'm working
Yeah, you
around it.
got.
Like I've told people on other shows and stuff, interviews, talking to people. My dad brought a book home from the public library when I was no more than second or third grade, I think. And this book was probably Bible thick, black, had a guy standing in either a totem pole or a wooden carving of a Sasquatch on the front. And all I remember is it said Bigfoot above it. And I can't tell you who the author was, or and I wasn't old. It was an adult book. I wasn't old enough to read the book, but Dad let me look at the pictures. And I've always said, hook, line, and sinker, Bigfoot had me from an early age. He brought home books about Bigfoot or UFOs and the other paranormal and cryptids, and that was all right. But something about Bigfoot just hooked me at an early age. So that's how I first got interested. And then as time went on and I got older, I followed the shows and read books when I could find them. Of course, you're talking about the 80s. Growing up, you couldn't find a whole lot in public libraries and school libraries. They might have one or two books. I probably read each of them books 10 times a piece. And then as I got a little older into my late teens and early 20s, I kind of drifted away from it. I was more worried about cars and girls and everything else a guy that age worries about. Then about my mid 20s, early 30s, I got back into it. And it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I had one possible roadside crossing sighting. And to this day, I'm not sure. I used to be convinced, but people have told me you saw a deer, you saw a bear, you saw a man. But I saw something cross a three lane highway one night. And to me, it looked like it was on two legs, about 8 foot tall, reddish brown. And if it was 8 foot tall, it had to be 4 foot broad and 3 foot from chest to thick, or chest to back. I saw that, or thought I saw that, whatever I saw. And I started watching all the shows that got popular, Finding Bigfoot, Destination Truth, reading again. And I knew that Bigfoot had been spotted, Sasquatch had been spotted in 49 out of 50 states other than Hawaii, all 7 continents. So I knew they were in Kentucky. But I went on the BFRO, and I think they have one encounter from here in Harrison County. So fast forward a few more years, about 4 years ago, I went to Crypticon, took Mom with me in Frankfort, Kentucky, Bobo, Cliff, and Stan Gordon out of Pennsylvania, and one of the Godfathers, and now I'm going to draw a blank, can't remember his name. Lauren Coleman was there, David Pilates. And I got listening to some of the stuff that other researchers and other witnesses was talking about going on their property and their encounters. And I realized it matched to a T some of the stuff going on here that I just never put 2 and 2 together and realized could be a Sasquatch on my property. So after that, I went out and started putting out trail cams, started going out and doing, of course, I was just getting started. I was out there beating on trees, whooping and hollering, just like the guys on the TV shows. And as I got more and more into it, I started finding prints, possible prints, possible tree structures. And to back up a little bit, one thing that happened, we always had around here what we called the thumps. That always happened late at night in the AM hours. And for the longest time, we got a walnut tree behind the house. I kept telling Mom, I was like, that's just walnuts falling off that tree, hitting the roof or hitting the side of the house. Till one night, we're both in bed. Her bedroom's on the far end of the house. I was laid down. It had to be about 3 o'clock in the morning. And something hit the back of the house. And I mean, wham! It shook the house. I thought a vehicle had come off the road across the yard and hit the front of the house. I jump up and go running through the house to check on Mom. She meets me halfway up the hallway checking on me. What was that? What happened? I was like, I don't know. I can tell you one thing, that wasn't a walnut. She's like, are you going out there? I was like, no, I'm not going out there. Not after that. And I was like, whatever it is, be there in the morning. Maybe. So sure enough, next day I get up and go out. And on the back of the house, we got vinyl siding. Above the back living room window back here, there's a smear of mud that starts out above the window and just goes in an arc down the house up below the rain trough. Now, the way that window stands, there's a slight downward slope in the backyard. It's right there next to that walnut tree, as a matter of fact. But there's a slight downward slope. I'm 5'7". If I reach up, my fingertips can barely brush the bottom of the windowsill. So that's probably 7 foot, give or take, right there. Then the window's probably another 2 foot tall. So there's 9. And this smear of mud down the side of the house is probably another 1.5 to 2 foot above the top of the window. So you're looking at 11 and a half feet off the ground. Now I'm just standing there looking at it. It's like, oh, like that ain't a walnut. A deer didn't jump into the side of the house that far off the ground, I don't think. And even then, the Bigfoot wasn't the first thing that popped in my. Something hit the house, but Bigfoot wasn't the first thing that popped in my head. I just couldn't figure it out. And then we went to the convention. And they got talking about house slapping and knocks. Well, what we were calling thumps were probably either tree knocks or them clapping their hands or banging rocks together back in the woods behind the house. And that night, apparently, one of them ran up here and just slapped the fire out of the back of the house for some reason. I don't know if we'd ignored it for so long, it got aggravated. It's like, I'll get their attention this time. No, I can't read a Bigfoot's mind. I can't tell you why they do what they do, but that was our first major incident that really got me thinking something out of the usual's going on here.
Man, that's something else. And you said that thing was about that palm print was about 11 foot off the ground, 11 and a half foot.
Well, you couldn't call it a palm print. It wouldn't. You couldn't make out fingers or anything. But I mean, if I took my hand and just swiped it in an arc across the screen here, that's what it looked like. Something had just smeared that mud down the paneling there on the house. And I couldn't figure out
how big was like the smudge itself? I mean, as far as like width or length.
width. I would say it'd be time and a half, or maybe as big as both of my hands put together. Now, length, it ran from right there above the window clear down to the corner of the house. I'd say at least 10 foot.
Really?
And it spirited down through there.
Yeah.
Man,
I mean that I mean, what would do that other? I mean, like reasonable, like most people thinking, unless it was a human, they ain't nothing else gonna do that.
He's standing out there the next day looking up at it. I'm like I said, a deer didn't jump and hit that high and bounce off the house or whatever. I don't think. And raccoons, squirrels, whatever, ain't gonna leave a smear that big.
no, and man, a regular man, even a basketball player, is not going to have that type of reach unless they had actually toted a ladder inside your house.
Yeah.
Put a ladder
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Kentucky, I'm sure George is the same way. That's a good way to get shot.
Most definitely.
If you want to get shot, that's how you go about doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think we here in the South, here in Georgia, are about the same way y'all are in Kentucky on a deal like that. I'm gonna start checking things out when stuff starts hitting inside the house like that.
Yeah.
Well, you don't mess with people's property, so.
In general,
exactly right. Barry, I got a couple of pictures here I'm gonna put up and let you kind of give us a little detail on them.
That there is the most recent print I found, and that I know I sent it via messenger. I don't know if it had a date on it or not. It was before the big snow hit up here in Kentucky, an ice storm hit up here in Kentucky a few days before it. And the interesting thing about that print, I was walking the dog. I've got a bloodhounds, a little over a year old, both Sebas. And I was out by the gate that goes down in the field in the woods out from the house. And what started it all is we got whistled at. And we'd heard these whistles before. Mom heard them before I ever did, early in the mornings. We've heard them broad daylight, night, morning. And these whistles, like the one that day, to say it was loud and long is an understatement. I've told people, if you ever had that buddy in high school who could do the whole and just split your eardrums, imagine that. Imagine that cranked to 10. So this thing seems like it's coming from a little copse of trees, maybe 50 or 60 yards from us. And Bo Stevens is just going nuts trying to drag me towards it. And I got him on the chain trying to hold him back because I don't know what's over there. So finally, I've gone down this one, I don't know, 6 or 7 times. I finally get him under control, take him back to the house. I go back out there, and there's no whistles anymore, but I get looking down, and then there's that print. What it looked like at the time, it might have been a day or two old.
Now, what was the exact measurements on that print?
I want to say it was around 16 and a half, 17. I put the ruler down, but I was trying to hold the ruler and hold the phone and watch to make sure ain't nothing walking up behind me while I'm doing it. If I remember right, 16 and a half, 17 and a half, somewhere along in there. I think it was something like 8 inches wide at the heel there, and
well, the main thing that stands out to me are the toe prints. You got pretty good definition in toe prints there.
Yeah.
You can see the heel as well, but toe prints are definitely.
What was the indentation on that print?
I think it was an inch and a half, maybe an inch and 3/4.
Okay,
and the ground was already, it had been cold, so the ground was already pretty solid. I mean, I could go out there and jump up and down, and I wouldn't make an inch and a half, inch and 3/4 deep print. And I'm, like I said, 5'7". I weigh about 220. I ain't no little boy.
So 16 inches long. Excuse me, guys. 18 and 16 inches long, inch and a half deep. The animal that left this would have had to have been probably 850 to 1,000 pounds. That's a huge print.
And it's one of them odd things. I found some other indentions that could have been prints, but where that print was at, to my right, is the fence and tree line. It's only a 4-foot tall fence, but I'm looking back. I don't see any more prints. I'm looking towards the road because our property's split. Part of it's on this right-hand side of the road, part of it's on the left-hand. I don't see any more prints. So I get trying to match its stride. And I mean, stretching for all I'm worth to the point I'm getting ready to pull a muscle or something. It took me 3 strides to get to the shoulder and edge of the road. And about 2.5 strides across the road. And when I got over to the left-hand side of the road, starting up the bank, that's when I started finding the other not so clear impressions, like it had went up at bank. So I'm wondering if, one stride, bam, it was in the middle of the road. Next stride, it was coming down on the bank on the other side of the road. They would give it a 7 or 8 foot stride. I think too many men out there has got a 7 or 8 foot stride.
No, and that's what's been reported us here in Georgia. People that see these things, especially crossing the road, they say that these things have a huge stride, about twice, 3 times what a man's stride is.
And thinking back to the possible sighting I had years ago, the funny thing about that, where I saw that is a 3-lane highway, 2 in the direction I'm going and 1 coming back south in the other direction. And if it is what I think it was, it crossed 3 lanes of highway from guardrail to guardrail in about 6 or 7 steps.
I don't know if you know the sightings I'm talking about. We had one in Clayton County a few months, well, I think it's a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, that they actually had on BFRO. A state trooper actually caught this thing on cam. He had a lady in the vehicle with him.
Ricky, that video is from 09.
09? Okay.
Yeah.
So farther back than I thought it was.
I remember seeing that
But this
on
thing,
one of the TV shows.
This thing actually, they caught it on a video cam that the officer had in the car, and this thing cleared a 2-lane highway in about 2 bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And man, anything that can do that, it's not normal. It's not, feasible to what I can comprehend.
It ain't some guy in
Sasquatch.
At least I don't believe it is.
I mean,
what's the chances of somebody timing that? I mean, because they'd know he was coming down the road at that time. I mean, I don't know. It don't make no sense for a human to do it. I mean, even
That's
if the
same
shot
way.
can be matched, or I mean, that makes less sense than it being a Bigfoot.
Yeah. Same way with that sighting I had all the years ago. Somebody said, maybe somebody was messing with you. I said, well, sometimes I come through at 1 o'clock, and sometimes I come through at 3 o'clock in the morning. What they do, go out there and stand all night alongside a major highway in a gorilla costume and just hoping
how crazy does that sound? I mean,
yeah.
Well, guys, I was reading an article. I was reading an article a few months ago that there was a guy up in I think it was Oregon, somewhere in that area up there, that he had actually tried to pull a hoax and had a ghillie suit on, and now he actually ran out in front of a vehicle at 10, 11 o'clock at night with this ghillie suit on, and all that got him was dead. I mean, the vehicle
hit him and bounced him into another one, if I remember right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, unless you're just a natural born idiot, you're not out in the middle of the night in rural areas running around in a gorilla suit. Because once again, it's good to get killed.
You're going to get killed. Number one, even where I'm from here, I live about 7 miles outside of Calhoun, Georgia, a little place called Redbud. And me and some of my friends had talked about it, and one of them, my son had actually, he does a lot of trading around. He'd actually got a hold of a ghillie suit here a couple of years ago, and at the time they were a couple of my buddies says, "Well, I think I'll put that thing on and run through Redbud." Well, I told him, I said, "I'll tell you what, the idiots we got here in Redbud, you put that thing on and run up through the middle of Redbud, you're going to end up getting shot 15 times before you get from one end of Redbud to the other." And all Redbud consists of is a little store out here. So, there's no way I'm going to do anything like that.
Yeah. No, like I said, you'd have to be a natural born idiot.
I may talk Blake into it.
No, not this guy.
Well, I'm not really qualified. Like I said, at 5'7", I wouldn't make a very convincing Sasquatch, but
I'm 6'1", but I mean, then again, I weigh like 185, so I mean,
I'd be the run of the litter.
Yeah, me too. I was just thinking about that. Put one on me. I'd say a midget Sasquatch.
Ricky, you would be a juvenile, okay?
An old juvenile. But guys, it does amaze me why people want to pull hoaxes. I mean, there's proof out there beyond a shadow of a doubt.
That's what I was about to say. There's proof out there that how hard it is to hoax evidence. I mean, actual good quality evidence, like crossing the road or something like that. I mean, it's pretty much impossible. I mean, and you can usually tell it's a human.
Yeah. Most of the hoaxes are, the Bigfoot community is pretty vicious about tearing them apart. No time flat.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been done. It's done it to itself, though. I mean, there've been so many people try to hoax stuff that now any good evidence comes out, it's automatically somebody's going to try to write it off as a hoax, unfortunately, just because of the stigmatism that's come from evidence.
Yeah, I've said that we went from one extreme to the other. There's a time everybody believed anything that got put out there, and now we swung to the far end of the spectrum where you don't believe anything you see.
No, I mean, you can literally have the most clearest photo in the world. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing. I mean, it's still going to be right off as fake.
Yeah.
That's right, guys, and that's where the internet has both helped the Bigfoot world as far as research is concerned, but then it's also actually done more harm than it's done good, because this day and time with the computers and computer generated images, you can basically fake about anything. But when you put that to a test, it's going to fall apart with you. That's kind of like the Gimlin film from 1967, the Patterson-Gimlin film. That film they've done everything to that film, but yet they've never been able to prove that that's a hoax. And Barry, you tell me who in 1967 could have actually made a costume for somebody to wear that looked as real as what that creature looked, what Patty looked in that film.
Well, the most convincing argument I've ever heard, the guy that made it was an special effects expert for Disney. And it's been a few years ago I saw this. He was watching the Patterson-Gimlin film, and he said, "I'm not sure we could do it now, let alone back then."
Yeah.
He's like, "There's no way in 1967 anybody faked that costume in that film."
Well, and what they would have had to went through to make that happen. Yeah. I mean, the area they were at, they would have had to went through a lot to have made that happen. And I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, if that is a suit, that is, whoever made that is a artist.
Mm-hmm.
Way beyond just being an artist. I'll tell you, why would you want to take the time and the effort and the cost that it would have taken to produce something like that for
Especially
like a
just a video. Yeah, what do you get? What do you really have to gain from
video.
it?
And once again, you got two old cowboys out there that are armed.
Right. That's what I'm
They're
saying. I mean,
packing rifles.
and you know, for a 40-second video, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
In case y'all wonder why I keep glancing off to the side here, I think I got a bobcat down in the field behind the house screaming. I've heard it 2 or 3 times now, and you know how bobcats are. It'll get your attention.
oh yes. And believe me, from all the cats I've got running around my house here, yeah, it's mating season for them. Believe me. I've got 2 female cats that I actually own, and that me and my roommate own, and there's probably 40 male cats that stay outside my window here and outside the door, just waiting on us to let one of these females out.
Yeah. Well, where'd y'all want to go from here? Or do you want me to
Basically,
talk about another encounter? Or?
Yep, talk about your stories.
All right. My first partial, I still haven't had what they call Class A, just eyeball to eyeball, head on sighting. Mom's come closer than I have, which is kind of funny. But my first partial sighting, I was just out right around dusk in the yard one afternoon, walking along the fence line, just kind of clearing my head, relaxing, wasn't doing anything, wasn't looking for Bigfoot. And across the fence and downrange of me, probably, this was in late spring, early summer, so the foliage and the canopy were full. You probably couldn't see more than 40 or 50 foot. I've always said it might have been 40 yards from me at the most. I just hear a big huff or clearing its throat, or I always said it sounded like, an old man when they get disgusted with somebody, they'll do that humph noise. And I turn my head, and downrange from me there, all I see is something take off crashing through the trees and the underbrush. And I'm only getting glimpses of it through the branches and foliage and everything else. And it was reddish brown. I always call it a mahogany color, that red brown with like red highlights or streaks in it. Some furniture wood has. And as I'm watching it, I'm realizing that whatever it is, even though it's on a downhill slope from me, it's easily further off the ground than my eye level. I'm like seeing flashes up here above my head, my eye level, and back down towards the ground. And this only lasted a few seconds. Seemed like it lasted, everybody says it seems like it lasted forever, but 15 or 20 seconds probably, as I'm watching it crash down through there, and it kind of curved, went down a little draw through the trees and on over into the thicker woods. I never did get a clear look at it, but some of those flashes looked like they were about 8 foot off the ground. And as I realized that, I was like, that's not legs 8 foot off the ground. It looked more like arm swing. And I went down there the next day, and of course, like I said, lower down, you could see what looked like legs turning. And I went down there the next day, and it looked like a bulldozer went down through there. The grass and shrubs were all flattened down. Twigs, or not twigs, but limbs and branches snapped off. Some 6, 7, 8 foot off the ground. About a 4 or 5 foot wide swath down through there. And as I'm standing there that afternoon watching it crash down through there, eventually my common sense or self-preservation or whatever you want to call it, because I don't have so much as a toothpick to defend myself with, I was like, what am I going to do if it comes back? I'm going to go back in the house is what I'm going to do. So after it got out of sight, I stood there a second. I was like, what the hell was that? And I thought long and hard about it. I was like, it had to be, because a deer couldn't crash in a straight line through that kind of foliage and undergrowth with that kind of speed and just bull through it like that. They would have to zigzag and jump, and this thing just mowed straight through it. That was the next one.
You know, like I told you a few weeks ago, you had me on your show. My first sighting I had was 1981, and this thing was, I basically saw it at about 40 yards. And I have never seen anything move as fast in all my life as what that creature moved, because when it winded us, it threw its head back, kind of winded us, it turned, and it was probably standing 40 yards, maybe a little further out from the wood line. And when that thing threw its head back and winded us, it turned and was gone in about 2 bounds and hit the woods. And after it, once it hit the woods, we never saw it again. It was
Yeah,
gone.
that's
It
same
made
as. Go ahead.
same with you, Blake, with yours. I mean, it
Yeah, same,
amazes me how these creatures can actually blend in once they hit the wood line.
Oh yeah, just my sighting. I mean, basically, once they were in the wood line, it was like they just disappeared. Once I
Like I
physically
said,
couldn't see them no more, I mean, you didn't hear nothing, you didn't see nothing. It was just like they were never there.
the part that really stuck with me wasn't just how fast it moved, but just how easy it crashed through underbrush and shrubbery and stuff that's up to my chest. And it plowed through it like it wasn't there. Even small saplings, it just plowed them under, snapped them off.
Right.
Like I said, a deer's not going to do that.
No.
And we don't, the only kind of bear we have in Kentucky is black bear, which they're mostly in eastern Kentucky up in the mountains. You occasionally get the random one that makes its way up here to north central Kentucky, but it was the wrong color.
Yeah, that's one thing here. We only have black bears, so I mean, that's one thing when you have a sighting here and you hear a different color of a creature than black. I mean, and it's a fairly big creature. I mean, what else is it going to be? We don't have brown bear. We don't. I mean, it's so can't really
And
be a
best I know, we don't have any
misidentification.
moose around here or elk. They're all out in
Right.
western Kentucky. So, like you said, there is nothing else. Bear, elk, you eliminate them, you're left with human or Sasquatch. And I don't think any man could go crashing down through there like that.
No, there's no way. I mean, it amazes me that how these animals can actually move around the way they do and get around in the forest. It really just it shocks me at times, because, like you say, and you were talking about the limb breaks and all. You know, what other creature other than a Sasquatch is going to break a limb 10 foot in the air? And I'm not talking little bitty limbs. I'm talking limbs the 3 times the size of a Coke can or whatever.
Mhm.
And these things are just broke. They're actually twisted and snapped. And Blake and I have encountered them where, and most of the ones that we've ever encountered, no matter where we go and find these things, they're all snapped, and most of them are pointed in one direction. Uh, like
Now,
maybe
down
a
there, would
trail
that one
marker.
direction usually be towards water?
Yeah, well, toward water, toward bedding areas, whatever.
I usually notice them around or pointing towards water.
That's something I've never thought about to pay attention to, because one place that we do a lot of our research is actually at a lake.
Mhm.
That's where I had my personal sighting at, and I've never thought about that. Never thought to pay attention to which direction they're actually pointed, if it is if it has any significance.
Well, what put it together in my head for me, I try to use, like I tell people, I don't even call myself a researcher. I tell them I'm a fat guy with a camera running around in the woods. But I noticed them, say if this tree's on a slant, the branches, if they were broke by natural means, they'd follow gravity. They'd either point straight down or downhill. Just like trees that fall over or pushed over naturally, they're going to go downhill. Now, when you find a branch that's snapped to the left or the right or uphill, pointing towards a small pond, that's not natural. It should be pointing down towards the ground if it just snapped naturally. And I got looking at that, I was like, that defies logic.
Well, when you go in the woods, you find a stick structure, for instance. Most, if you'll pay attention to it, most of the sticks where these things have actually built structures. The sticks and the trees that they build these things out of are actually snapped at the base and stacked in place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have found trees that are 10, 12 inches in diameter or bigger that have been done this way. I'm talking just snapped off and placed in these structures. Now, you tell me those were not man made.
No.
You know, I've run across a lot of big men, but I've never run across a man that can take a 12-inch tree and snap that thing like it's a toothpick and then drag it up and place it like that.
Well, just like
Yeah.
that tree that we found that was upside down, derooted and roots in the air. Like, what? What? I mean, what?
Yeah, yeah, we
Well, I was
actually
going to say one thing that aggravates me is some of these people that there's a Bigfoot behind every bush, and every time you find two twigs crossed in the forest, it's a tree structure. And I believe in both, but like not limbs like you're talking about, like you said, 3 times as big as a cocaine. But I actually tested myself, just a common sense test. I took one. It was about halfway green, halfway dead. It was still alive. It's probably about thick as 2 or 3 of my fingers put together. And I mean, it took everything I had. But if I sit there and put my back into it, I could break it by twisting. And that's a far cry from the size you're talking about. But a human
right.
being could do it on one that size.
A small branch, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about,
Oh, yeah.
I'm, I'm talking
You're
about,
actually talking about they're not branches or limbs.
right,
Yeah.
Or sometimes they, like I said, small saplings.
right.
I've seen some as thick as my forearm twisted like that. And like I said, if it's all I can do to twist one that's as thick as my fingers, I don't really want to run into the thing or man that can do it to one as thick as my forearm. That's borderline superhuman strength right there.
That's exactly right. And yeah, you know, it's kindly strange that we actually get out. Blake and I do a lot of research in this area, and we get out here at night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in the woods with these things, where these things are actually at, and you know, travel the woodland, do this. We do it because I don't know. I guess because we're idiots. I don't know.
It's wanting answers. I understand it. Now, where I go out by myself, the night time is their time. I get my behind out of the woods before the sun goes down. I make sure I'm back up in the fields headed towards the house when the sun sets. I don't stay out there at night by myself, knowing what's out there. Because at
Yeah.
night, they've got all the advantages.
Oh,
I don't care if you're packing a
most
cannon.
definitely. These creatures, I have actually saw, I've actually saw eye shines that were 8 foot off the ground, and these eye shines were twice as wide as my eyes. And you know, when you're actually looking down a flashlight beam and you're looking into a face of something, and its eyes set twice the size of mine, and 8 foot off the ground, and these eyes are shining back a red hue to you, you know, and you 20, 30 yards from these things, it gets a little unnerving.
Yeah. And talking about Eyeshine, I had one occasion. I went in the other room to talk to mom. She had laid down for the night. It was 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I just happened to glance out her bedroom window, checking more or less just looking to see if there's any weather going on or anything. And out at the fence line, I see these two amber, orangish yellow colored eyes, probably a good 7.5, 8 foot off the ground. Like you said, big as $half, and probably 5 inches apart. And the part that was unnerving, as I was looking at it, it kind of shifted, like it was looking right back in that window at me, like it knew I was standing there looking at it. And I mean, I backed and I was like, shut the curtains. And I backed all the way down the hallway. I was like, that just, the fact that it turned its head or shifted or whatever, like it was almost looking me eye to eye through that window from 40 or 50 yards away, like it knew I was there. That was kind of freaky.
That's something I've never seen is Eyeshine. Or, I mean, I've seen Eyeshine, but far as thinking it was an actual Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, to be as far off the ground and as big as it was, to be that far off the ground, it either had to be something standing on its hind legs or something in a tree, like an owl. But like I said, owls don't have eyes 5 or 6 inches apart and as big as half dollars.
No, I don't want to be around that owl. If they're an owl out there with that much span between their eyes, then that's a pretty big owl.
And it was every owl I've ever seen is more being a greenish yellow eyeshine. This was orangish red. Same thing with cats. Most of them are that yellowish green eyeshine. And I know I spoke to another researchers that said there's like 30 some odd animals that can produce red eyeshine, black bear among them. But once again, how many of them are 7 or 8 foot off the ground and 5 or 6 inches apart?
Exactly.
Because close the curtains, go to bed, and hope it does too.
Barry, there's some more pictures here. I'm gonna bring this one up. Now, where was this picture actually taken at?
That was right here on the farm. That was down behind the house. I put a lot of my trail cams about 4 to 5 feet off the ground. And I believe that I put that one, I believe, in the fence line right with my neighbor's property, I think. And I've had people tell me that's a squirrel's butt right in front of the camera. It don't look like a squirrel butt to me. It looks more like the fur of an arm or leg to me. And if it is a squirrel butt, it's a pretty good sized squirrel, is all I can say.
Ricky, I can't see the picture.
You can't see it?
No.
What about that one? You see that one, Blake?
No.
Huh,
I'm looking right at it right now.
I don't know. It's probably something. It may be because I'm not on Wi-Fi. I don't know.
What about that one there, Blake? Can you see it?
I can't see. All I see is you guys.
Huh.
There we go. I see something now.
See that one?
I see that one.
That one there, Blake. Can you see it?
No.
Huh.
It's probably something on my end.
Probably. That one there, can you see it, Blake?
I can't. Let me turn my Wi-Fi back. Let me see something. Hang on just 1 second. Let my Wi-Fi reconnect.
Now, Barry, that's pretty good one there. That taking in the snowstorm you're talking about y'all had up there?
Yeah. That would have been. That was the morning after the night we had the really weird noises out back in the woods behind the house. Yeah. I went out the next morning. About 10:30, I heard 2 separate knocks, but they wasn't your normal 1, 2, or 3 knock, knock, knock. This was rat-a-tat-tat-tat. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. And then I heard something that sounded like something being drugged through the brush or something back through there. A real loud rubbing sound. Real strange. And I went out the next day and found a few impressions and prints in the snow. And that snow had ice and sleet mixed in with it, so it was as hard as concrete.
That's a pretty deep impression there.
Yeah.
And what I like about this one, if you'll notice, you can actually see the mid-tarsal break in this thing in the footprint itself. And that's one awesome print.
And as luck would have it, I didn't have any plaster at the time.
Right.
Oh, that's always when you find the best prints.
Oh yeah. Blake and I found some good ones, and not have a bit of plaster with us.
Now that's the odd fog or mist or something I get every now and then in on trail cam pics. And if you look towards the upper, be my right hand corner, it almost looks like Eyeshine or something back in the trees there in the distance.
Right?
Yeah.
I ain't never figured out what causes that weird glow like that. I don't know if it could be from moss or mushrooms, or I know some moss is bioluminescent or however you.
Yeah.
Like I said, I try to apply common sense to everything and not see Bigfoot behind every bush. And
That's me. Like, I mean, even though I've had a visual sighting, I still, just like last night, I went down to the lake where I actually had my sighting, and me and my dad went down there, and we come across it's kind of compelling. I mean, it was a just stack of rocks, and it was bigger rocks at the top, and as you went up, they just kept getting smaller. I mean, they are human activity down there. So, just me being me, I just automatically wrote it off as, being a human doing it. But it was just weird. It was in a weird place. Like, I mean, a lot of people would have looked at it and been like, oh, Bigfoot did that. But, I mean, there are probably a 90% chance a human did it, a 10% chance Bigfoot did it.
A lot of my, if you want to call it research, I do with the trail cams. And something I ain't been able to figure out. I've got them on video now. I used to do still shots. Now I pretty much leave them on video. I'll get dozens, if not hundreds, of little 10-second videos, and I cannot, for the life of me, see anything moving to set them cameras off. And somebody suggested they're throwing something at the cameras.
The Arkansas boys put here the fog is from breath from behind the cameras.
Makes as much sense as anything.
Right? So it took us a while to figure out what it was. So yeah, that's awesome.
I don't doubt that at all, because I've had cameras get moved from behind.
Right?
You actually see them shake like something's manipulating them from behind, or shaking the tree or fence post I've got them attached to. Or, like I said, the one I can't figure out is all the pictures I get of nothing. It ain't raining, it ain't snowing, I don't see any insects in front of the camera. I mean, everything's perfectly still, but something
Sets
says,
the camera off, though.
Yeah. And there may be a perfectly rational explanation for that, but I just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, I mean,
well, guys,
I don't know how I feel about it. But I had somebody tell us one time that it's because they're fast enough to get past the camera before it actually takes a photo.
Yeah, and most cameras have got like a 1 to 3 second trigger time.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I mean, possibly
something would have to be moving to get out of rain, to get out of the frame. I mean, it's one thing if they like wave their hand in front of it or something.
Which, I mean, it kind of makes sense, because if they can see our, well, one, if they can see our, why would they walk in front of it? But two, if they see our and they know they can, pass the camera fast enough to not be caught on camera, I mean, I don't know.
And I have got some, it's just like a blur or a flash of fur or something, which I can't prove it's Bigfoot. It could be a lot of things, but it could be a bat or something at night or a bird during the day. But it's enough to make you stop and wonder.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, how big of an area up there do you actually do your research on?
My personal farm, mine and mom's, is 7.5 acres, which don't sound that big until you're hiking it.
Right.
And especially when some of it's thickly forested, like I said, you got underbrush up to your belt line. You almost have to have a machete to get through it. And I've done a couple of off-site investigations. We got a family friend, and her family's had experience with them going back 2 or 3 generations. And I went over to her place one time and did some investigating. It's the next county over, but 99.9% of my stuff comes from right here, my farm or the area right around it, neighbors.
All right. Well, I had a guy contact me on Facebook here a couple of weeks ago, and he actually said that they've been having some strange things take place around his house. He said that his wife kept two bowls out in the backyard that she had been putting scraps in. They've got raccoons and possums and whatever coming down and they eat your scraps out of these bowls. Well, he said she went out here a few weeks ago and one of the bowls actually came up missing and was gone for about a week. And then he said that she went out to feed them, and the bowl was brought back, put right back in the place where it was taken from, but the bowl looked like it had been washed clean. All right. He said a couple of days later, she goes out to feed them, and the other bowl was missing. And the same thing happened. About a week later, it showed back up, put right back in the same place, and looked like it had been washed clean. Okay, he said then about 2 or 3 days after that, he had a cooler propped up against the side of his building out behind the house, and the cooler had rollers on it. Okay, he said he had placed a rock on this cooler. He had turned it up sideways. He had placed this rock on this cooler and to keep it from blowing away. And he said that his wife got to hearing some racket one night, and that she had went out and checked, and this cooler had been rolled from the side of their building all the way out to the front yard, and so you could see where it had been rolled through the grass, and the rock placed back on top of it. Okay, he said then after that, they'd been having problems with something slapping like yours, something slapping on the side of the house at night, and sounding like rocks being thrown against the house. So I'm trying to work it out right now where I can go up and investigate that area. It's in the lower end of Murray County. But you just don't know about this. I'm sorry?
That's there with Georgia where you're at?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've had a couple similar. The pan thing reminded me. Mom used to have an old skillet that the handle would come off, cast iron skillet she didn't use anymore.
Right.
She put it out in the backyard to feed the farm and stray cats and, like you said, possums and raccoons. Well, that thing laid out there in that yard for years. Never moved, never disappeared. Went out there one day, just gone. And I mean, I've been all over this farm since. That skillet ain't nowhere on this farm. And that skillet probably weighed 3 or 4 pounds.
That's what I'm saying. You're not going to get a raccoon, a possum, normally not even a bear is going to drag something like that out.
Well, the big thing about a raccoon or a possum, how to get it through the fence. Because this is a cast iron skillet, that wide by that wide. How to get it through or over the fence.
Exactly.
And like I said, I've looked this farm up and down for that skillet and never did find it. And like I said, it laid out there for years, and the raccoons and possums and everything else never budged it an inch. Except one day, it was just gone.
Yeah, Bigfoot done found him a new skillet.
They're saying the cameras are being shaken or shifted from behind. That's what I'm getting, the pictures of nothing. Very good possibility.
Yeah, your scent's left on the straps, it says.
Well, I believe with these creatures, they probably got a sense of scent. You could spray all the deer musk or skunk musk or whatever you want on you, and they'd still probably pick your scent up through it all. Because I believe there's
guys,
with the exception of the daytime sight, where I think they're mostly, not completely, but mostly nocturnal. I think that's why a lot of them get seen in the daytime and right around dusk and dawn, because their sight ain't that good in the light.
Well, that's like my personal sighting. It did happen in the daytime, but it was right after sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it was maybe 45 minutes after sunrise.
Yeah.
So.
And another theory I had, just like humans, the best time to sneak up on me is when I just woke up.
Yep.
So for them, probably right around dusk. They're still groggy. And that's one reason I like to research during the day. If I'm ever going to have a chance of surprising one or sneaking up on one, it's going to be in the daytime, not the night.
Yeah.
It's like I said, if you go out there at night, you're in their world. In the daytime, you at least got a fighting chance, I think. Because the
Well,
bad thing
especially if they're-
is you got a chance to use it.
Well, and if they are truly a nocturnal animal, then their senses are not going to be as good during the day as they're going to be at night.
And I've talked to other researchers, and I kind of agree with them. I think they post sentries or lookouts or whatever you want to call them during the daytime. If there's more than one of them, Mama and the babies crawl up in the den and take them a nap. Daddy sits up for a couple hours, watches, and he'll go lay down. And Mama or one of the juveniles gets up, takes his spot.
That's like some of the raising of wood knocks and whoops and whistles. That may just be their way of telling, hey, I'm over here, there's somebody over here, you stay over there type situation. I mean,
well, like I told somebody else, that's the difference between a form of communication and an actual language. I believe the knocks are a communication.
mm-hmm.
Now, as far as the language, like 3 knocks is, hey, Frank, how's the wife and kids? No. But 3 knocks could mean run. 2 knocks.
If you truly believe, if you truly believe they're super intelligent, beings, and you believe like, samurai chatter is their spoken language or whatever, whatever language they speak, but apparently they do speak some form of language.
Well, yeah.
So why would they need to use knocks as a form of a language per se?
Yeah. Well, every animal on Earth's got some kind of language. I mean, dogs barking and carrying on means something to another dog.
Exactly.
You don't understand it, but yeah.
Right. Blake and I have actually heard things where it sounds like it sounds like chatter in the woods. And
and mainly it sounds like talking, but no pronounceable words.
Right.
I've heard that a lot. It sounds like either Native American mumbling or I heard a couple said it sounded like Russian backwards. Now, I don't know how you know what Russian sounds like backwards, but I don't know if I'd recognize Russian footwords, but
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
It all comes down to this, guys. They do so much that we actually do not know and do not understand about these creatures. And that's the whole key that keeps me going and keeps me interested in doing this.
Well, you want, I can share a couple of the weird audio phenomena I've heard that's outside of knocks or chatter or anything like that. I've heard all kinds of knocks and whoops and screams and whistles, but I've heard a couple things I cannot figure out.
Dude, I heard what I can describe as the Predator one night, okay? Like, I don't even know, can't even begin to tell you what it was. All I know is it creeped me the hell out. Excuse my language, but I mean, it was a little nerving for me.
Well, I had one occasion I was down in the woods, and this was broad daylight. It was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer. So, I mean, literally broad daylight. And I was in partial woods. I wasn't way deep. I could still see the sky above me. And I heard what I can only describe as folk flute music. Like Native American or Celtic type flute music. And it was a distinctive tune. Somebody playing a freaking flute out there. Oh, this is my property. I'm the only one on it out there. And I could see a decent amount. There's foliage and stuff, but I think I could see somebody if they were standing out there playing a flute close enough for me to hear it. And I was like, that in broad daylight, you talking about, hair standing up on your arms, chills up your back, especially when a few seconds later you hear it again. And I'm just like, that's another. Excuse my language. What's going on here?
Yeah, there's only one other thing it could be paranormal.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there was Bigfoot out there playing a flute either, but
yeah.
And then one afternoon, and it was getting close to dusk. I was out on the deck just sitting there drinking a soda or something. And there's a big valley right across the road from us, another guy's property, got a big lake on it. A lot of good territory down in there for anything. And I've always said it sounded like Geronimo on the warpath. That classic Apache Native American war cry. Right before they run out on a horse and throw the lance at the cavalry or whatever in the movies. That's a classic Native American war cry. And I'm just sitting there in my chair on the deck, and I'm like, really? I mean, what do you do when you hear something like that? And it was loud. I mean,
I know what I do. Get running.
Except sit there and think about it.
Not like crazy. I did it. It was loud. And I'm just sitting there like, that's a new one. I mean, I'm not going down there to find out what that was or who that was. I don't believe it was any of my neighbors out in the woods screaming and hollering like Geronimo. And like I said, there's just some things you just can't explain.
And it makes you wonder, how many people that deal with, these creatures on their land that hear just weird things that really start to believe themselves are crazy.
Well, I know. I don't know if y'all listen to Sasquatch Chronicles, West Germer. How many times he said a lot of the witnesses would tell him, I thought the place was haunted until I figured out what was going on.
Yeah.
They thought we were dealing with ghosts until they seen them.
Well, the first time I ever heard a howl, first time me and Ricky were down at the lake and we ever heard a howl. That was the first thing I thought of was something paranormal. I didn't that Bigfoot didn't even cross my mind at that point in time. I just didn't know what the heck was going on.
There's all kinds of animals in nature that makes some ungodly noises. Like I said, a bobcat. Anybody that don't know what a bobcat, you'd swear there was a woman getting murdered outside my window.
Right.
Foxes make some ungodly, strange noises.
Well, Blake and I were over at Blue Ridge a few months back, and we heard what it sounded just like an owl call. Is what it sounded like two owls calling to one another. All except the deepness of these calls. If it was owls, these things had to weigh 400 pounds a piece or better. And
I've got what I call the 60-pound dove here. Like you said, it sounds just like a dove, only a lot deeper and a lot longer.
Right.
I've told people if it's a dove, it weighs 60 pounds and it's in my back pocket.
Well, we have, me and Ricky's experience for sure that they mimic sounds, because Ricky actually got a response down at the lake that actually sounded just like Ricky. Like Ricky's howl. As soon as Ricky's howl ends, we get a response, and it literally sounded. It was Ricky.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I can describe it. Like, it was one of the craziest things I've ever heard.
The only thing was it was a little deeper than.
Yeah, it was definitely louder. Yes, but far as just the way it sounded, it was Ricky's howl all over.
The local tone of it sounded just like me. It did.
Mm-hmm.
That was the night that was the night that Blake and his dad run off and left me. They were back in the truck, 5 minutes before I got there with the doors locked. His dad rolled the window down and said, "Hey man, I didn't have to outrun Bigfoot. All I had to do was outrun you."
Let's back up just a little bit. This thing, we were in a cove. The lake was down. They probably weren't, maybe 50, 60 yards of water in between us and this thing that howled back at Ricky.
Oh yeah.
I've had a couple of old crap moments. Like I said, I'm out there in the daylight, so I can imagine it's 10 times worse in the dark. I had one instance. I was down in a little, I guess you'd call it a miniature valley or a draw. I don't know what you call it. But I go down there all the time. And there's one day down there, I think I told Ricky about this before. I'm sitting there making a video, talking to myself more or less, doing whoops and hollers. And all of a sudden, I noticed the crows have stopped alerting. and everything's just dead silent. Like I said, when the crows stop, you know something's up because crows will alert to you the whole time you're in the woods.
Oh yeah.
And I just got the creepiest feeling. I was like, there's something down here with me. And I'm looking around. I can't see nothing. I can't hear nothing. I don't smell nothing. But my skin is just crawling. So it's like, I'm getting up and I'm getting out of here. And all the way back, I'm looking over my shoulders and around me. And I even used the old Native American tracking trick. I had a big Bowie knife with me. I pulled it out where it had a stainless steel blade. I'd hold it up and use it for a mirror to look behind me. Never did see nothing, never did hear nothing. But I couldn't get out of there quick enough that day in broad daylight. And like we was talking before, honestly, I don't think that was Bigfoot projecting fear on me or whatever. It might have been divine intervention, my guardian angel or Jesus himself. Hey, it's time to get your tail end out of here, you know? Or maybe just instinct or self-preservation. I don't know.
I mean, as humans, we have our instincts, and our instincts tell us when are a little bit more intellectual than a lot of people realize. I mean,
And then I had another instance where I come back up out of the woods. It was just getting around sunrise. Well, there's two different instances. First one was my second partial sighting. I just come up out of the woods over on the west side of the property and started walking up the bank around the old pond that we got over there. It's got a leak in it now. It ain't much more than a glorified mud puddle, about, I'd say, 10 foot wide, 15 foot long, maybe 3 or 4 foot of water in it. But as I rounded it, I heard that hoof again. And I look over, and on the far bank in the trees, I just see a black shape take off back down over the bank, the direction I just come from. And this one looked a little bit smaller. I'd say it was about 7 foot, and it could have been the shadows and stuff, but it looked more like a solid black or a dark gray or something like that. And the same thing, moving like a bolt of lightning, crashing down through there. And this thing was 30 or 40 feet from me, and I had no idea until it vocalized and moved. And then I had another more or less in the same location. I just come up out of there, and I heard the distinct sound of one branch or limb not being stepped on, being snapped in the tree line behind me. Just one. Not another sound, no footsteps, no nothing, just distinct, only a whole lot louder of something being snapped. And that was couldn't have drove a 9-inch nail up my tail butt with a 10-pound sledgehammer when that happened, because it was right. Something was right behind me.
Yeah.
But I had no idea there.
Yeah, we've
That's
had
kind of something like that happens.
Yeah, we've had quite a few experiences where we know for sure that they've been probably within, I don't know for sure, but can't be no more than, 50, 60 foot from us, and us never know they're there until it's already too late.
Just like we said, what we talked about, as fast as they move, 50 or 60 feet ain't nothing. You never know what hits you.
No. If one of these things, if one of these things actually decided to attack a man, if they were, even if they were 60, 100 yards away from the man, they could still get you before you could actually get out of the area.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, bad thing about a gun is you got to get a chance to use it.
Exactly it.
Well, and who says a gun's even going to take one of these creatures down unless it's the right size caliber? I mean,
if push comes to shove, self-defense, I don't particularly want to shoot or kill one. I'd aim for a leg. I can't outrun a Bigfoot, but I may be able to outrun a one-legged Bigfoot. It sounds like a joke, but that's my common sense.
Well, you're exactly right, Barry. I mean,
I can get away from it. Unless, of course, like I always go back to a lot of things in old westerns. They'd always tell you it ain't the Indian that you see that's going to get you. It's the ones you don't see.
Exactly right.
If you see this one coming at you, how do you know there ain't 3 more coming up behind you? Just like in the old Western movies.
And you know, and the experiences that Blake and I've had with these things over the years, I'm gonna tell you, I don't, I don't think these things are ever out there. Just one of them. I think that there's actually three, four, five, six of them. Whenever they're out at night like that, you know. And who's to say that these tree knocks and things of that nature that we hear out of these animals are them not calling others of their species in to help investigate us while we're investigating them.
Well, how many other creatures are solitary? Humans aren't.
No,
How many creatures on Earth are actually solitary? Travel alone, live alone? I can't think of any off the top of my head.
no,
At
very
least not
few.
animals. There might be some fish or birds or something out there somewhere. Snakes or something. But I mean, if they procreate, if they populate, they at some point in time they have to mingle with one another.
Well, from the research that we've done, I believe these things run in clans. They live in clans, and you know, I don't believe they're just out there, just one, two of them. If you actually see one, I'm sure there's going to be others around within the vicinity to where if something happened to this one that you actually saw,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be able to come to render its aid. They're going to be able to come to its aid if need be.
Well,
Well, that's
I
why
mean,
I have this live and let live attitude towards the ones around here. I would not want to take a shot at one of these things or even, God forbid, kill one and start something I can't finish.
well, that's what I was just about to say. Is I mean, all your stories of places getting attacked or people getting attacked. Usually it involves a human did something to provoke that.
Oh, yeah. I just talked to another witness. What was the last broadcast I did with Sam? I don't know if either one of y'all saw it. He's out in South Dakota, Wyoming, one. And he was talking about his son's been going up and gifting, feeding them. I was like, I wouldn't do that. And I explained to him, if you start feeding them and then you stop, they're going to get.
Right, you tend to bring out aggression in them. You sure do.
And sure enough, he messaged me today. He's like, well, my son said he's tried to stop twice, and both times they started getting aggressive. He's like, I don't know what we're going to do. I was like, I don't know what you do at that point either. If you've already ticked them off, I mean,
Keep doing it, I guess.
I suggest backing out of that area and just leaving them alone. Hopefully, they'll simmer down.
My best advice to anyone: if you're going to gift these animals, to bring them into an area, whatever, to hold them there, the best thing you can do is get as far away from your house as you can get, because I've noticed a lot of different people that have had encounters with these things, whereas they went right out in the backyard and started leaving stuff for them like you'd leave for a dog out in the backyard.
You wouldn't do it
And
for a bear.
of course, you're going to draw them. It's just like bears. You're going to draw them right straight into your house, and you quit putting that food out there. They're going to be expecting it, and of course they're going to retaliate, where it be slapping your house, where it be throwing rocks through your windows, or whatever, to get your attention. Hey, look, I'm hungry. I want my food.
And I talked to another witness a couple nights ago on the phone, and he had some encounters and found some evidence of activity that suggested tool use and premeditated planning, to give you an idea of how intelligent they are.
Oh,
The tool use, he found a tree with moss growing up the side of it. Something had taken the slade out, a piece of slade out of a nearby creek, and was scraping that moss off the side of the tree. 8, 9 foot off the tree. That's tool use. I mean, that's next level right there.
well, I've seen bark scraped off trees around in this area here and over in Blue Ridge that 8, 10, even 12 feet where the bark had actually been stripped off the trees. And we don't have bear around here that is going to be able to stand flat footed and strip bark and mark a tree 10, 12 foot in the air. We're not going. We don't have it.
I found one oak tree. The bark has just been peeled off of it. I'm talking started 12 or better foot off the ground. And entire strips just pulled right straight down. And another researcher tried to say, well, there's some kind of beetle that'll do that. I was like, well, that's fine, except for I didn't see any beetles on that tree. And none of the trees around them were affected either. She told me the beetles went in there and attacked one tree and left the rest of them alone. Some mighty peculiar beetle.
That's right. Well, guys, we've been into this a little over an hour. Barry, I'm gonna have to get off here and go help the guys. Been helping me on the house here. But man, it has really been. We're really glad to have you on the show tonight. You've got our welcome back anytime you want
to come. All right. Well, you're welcome. Either one of you be welcome on my show. Just let me know.
Hey man, we'll sure do it. We'll sure do it.
Yeah, just get with Ricky. I said, just get with Ricky, get us a date, and we'll definitely come on there.
All righty.
Yeah, just get us a date, Barry, and we'll be glad to come on and hang out with you and discuss anything we can.
I've got a couple maybes lined up right now, so I got to figure out what they're doing or not doing first. But
what days do you normally do your show?
I'd been doing it on a Tuesday. I was thinking about changing it to maybe a Friday or Saturday night about 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And like I said, I told people in my group, perfect transparency, whatever, the new Superman and Lois show that come on the CW, 9 o'clock Tuesday nights. I want to watch it. I can't watch it on a podcast. It's that simple. I want to watch that TV show. So I may have to reschedule my podcast.
We do ours. We've been doing ours every Wednesday night since we started, and this seems like a pretty good time slot for us. So we maintain it every Wednesday night. But Barry, yeah, anytime, man, if you want us to come on as a guest on the show, all you got to do just holler at me and just shoot me a line in Messenger, and we'll be glad to come on. Anytime you want to come back and join us, all you got to do, man, is just holler at us, and we'll be glad to have you back on, buddy.
All right. Well, if anybody's got any questions about them pictures with Blake, you could share them with him in Messenger or put them up on your group page or whatever where you can see them or whatever.
I'll do that. I appreciate it, Barry.
I can buy him my group and he can look at stuff I got on there.
Okay.
Whatever. All the above.
Well, it's getting time for us to get out and start doing a little more investigating. The weather's getting a little warmer down here, and anything that we get a hold of that we think you might be interested in, I'll shoot you some pictures, and you can post them on yours.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I've told everybody that'll listen to me. People need to be more willing to work together. Everybody wants to be the guy that finds Bigfoot. I ain't never going to get it.
No, they're never going to be that one person. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work that way. No. Everything is better in groups and teams.
That's exactly right. Anybody that can work together in this field, you're a lot better out.
Well, that not only in this field, just life in general.
Well, that's true.
I was going to say, if it is one guy that finds Bigfoot like me going out by myself, chances are you're never going to find me. But that'd probably be the end of my road right there.
They'll find me.
I'll be in a Pilates missing 411 video.
That's what I was just about to say. Become a picture of missing 411.
Spoke or a poster child for it, signs a milk carton and said, "You seen this man?"
That's exactly right. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out here. Everybody, Mr. Barry Preston Robertson. Barry, we wish you continued success for your show, buddy. And anytime you want to come back, just holler at us. Folks, we've really enjoyed tonight. We hope you have enjoyed watching. We're going to get on here. This has been another segment of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. Join us next week. We have Mr. Neil Kay from North Carolina. Neil is a paranormal researcher up there. And Barry, get a chance to join us, watch the show. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right. Everybody have a good night. God bless.
All right. Blake, you want to close us out, buddy?
Nope.
We'll
As
see you.
always, guys, if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, comment, and like. Go show Barry some love as well. I hope everyone has a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Night night.